So a broken heart gets broken when you have your childhood sweetheart leaves you with 5 kids to take care of. And you went to an all-girl, lily white Catholic school in Chicago, meaning that my grandmother, her mother, paid tuition back in the 50s and the 60s for my mother to go to school. So you know she was being groomed for greatness. You know my grandmother saw the destiny and power on her daughter and made sure she had the best education money could buy. But, we end up marrying somebody that does not line up with our destiny, and it happens. It just happens. My mother's heart and her mind weren't connected. So it got broken. And boy, when you have a broken heart, and what happens with a broken heart, that's when you feel guilty, and that's where the shame comes, and you don't trust anybody. My mom didn't trust anybody. She barely trusted her mom. What did I say? When your heart is broken, you no longer trust it. So now you think you have to go outside of yourself to get your needs met. That's where codependency comes from. That's when, I don't trust the decisions that I'm going to make. So I'm going to have to now depend on my mother to help me raise these 5 kids. All of the power, all of the hope, all of the destiny that was on my mother was sucked out of her life in about 6 or 7 years when my father left her, beat her, broke her down till she just snapped. And I think that snap is when your brain and your heart just sever. It just gets disconnected. And you just get filled with negative emotions that you can't even control anymore. And that's where depression comes in and everything. You just, at this point, you wake up hurting, you go to bed hurting. First is your heart, then is your body, then everything on you just is in pain. Okay? So that's the broken part of the heart. Now let me talk about the broken part of the brain. Okay, so now, the brain, that's a whole nother, I gotta put my notes up for this one. That's a whole nother, element when you start talking about people's brain. Because we live in America. We live in the West. So in the West, we're taught to feed our brains, go to school. Education is it, it's king, it's God, it's gold, it's everything, right? So if your brain doesn't function and work at its highest capacity, its highest level, you begin to find your shortcomings in life, limitations in life. I'm a special ed teacher. I should have been in a special ed class. And my kids feel all the time that I'm not good enough because I'm not as smart as them. But they got hearts of gold. See, they were never taught to focus not just on your brain, but you got more parts of you than a brain. You're more than just your brain. You're more than just what you're thinking and what you know. It's how you're feeling and how you treat people. Oh, we're going to talk about that. Okay? So within the brain, we begin to overthink things. It's almost like a broken record. Whatever the things and the trauma that happened to my mom, the beatings, the being left abandoned. Her throat was slashed and left for dead because the men wanted my father and they couldn't get to her, so they got to her. Oh, my mom was abused. She was hurt. Oh, my God, they trampled. They tried to destroy my mama. Could you imagine the thoughts that were going through her head in a day's time, in a night's time? Can you imagine the conversations that she had out loud because they deemed her schizophrenic? So all of the things that was going on inside of her mind, she just would spew out of her mouth. It was kind of rough growing up as a child. So you got overthinking, thinking about things that you can absolutely not change. And you having conversations that you can't even share with people. Let's talk about that. You got things going on in your head, things that happen to you, that you don't even have a safe place, a safe person that you can go and pour out these thoughts to, and they not call you crazy. Because my mom started pouring out the thoughts, and that's when they began to deem her crazy. And that's when she started going in and out of mental institutions. But you begin to overthink, and you begin to become very judgmental. You're doubting yourself, and then you begin to put this mask on that's not real. It's fake. You just begin to live this fake life. On the outside, you might be smiling and looking like everything is fine, but inside you are in turmoil, torment, sleepless nights, rushing through life, just rushing. It's almost like, I call it the hurried child. It's almost like you're always hurrying, you're always running, going, never getting there. Never truly satisfied when you get to your destination, because as soon as you get there, you're running some more. So your brain and your thoughts are in full throttle like that, just moving. And you're being moved by these external voices. These voices that are going on around you. Okay? These people that are telling you who you should be and what you should do, because remember, you no longer trust yourself. Your heart's broken, so you can't trust yourself anymore. Okay? And so you have these assumptions. You're making all of these assumptions about what you think people are thinking about you, because sometimes when you got them thoughts going on, you think everybody knows what you're thinking. And so now, every time someone says something to you, you assume, or you make assumptions that they're thinking or saying something about you that may not even be true, because you're what? Out of control. Whew, that's a lot about just the brain and the negative side. But let me go on and hit the positive side, because I don't want this video to be no more than 23 or 24 minutes. Now this is the upside, okay? This is a healthy brain. You have to start loving yourself and caring about yourself. The first thing is, you've got to some of us African American people are just too ashamed to go and see therapists. Go and sit down with people that are trained to help us figure this brain out, figure our thoughts out, figure out what's happening inside of us. I've been a therapist. As a teacher and social worker, I used to check in with my therapist every month just to make sure I was where I needed to be, because I had a child and I was not going to lose my mind. So you have to begin to care for yourself. You have to give yourself permission to care about yourself. You have to begin to tell you that whatever happened to you wasn't your fault. See, we're on this journey in life, and I'll talk about that more in my other videos coming up. But there's assignments that when we came to this earth, that hey, that was the deck of cards you were dealt. This was the life you were supposed to live. But what you have to do is take what comes and then make a better life out of it. Change your stars. Be aware of what happened to you. Stop asking God and the universe and why me, why this happened to me, and just look at it like this. This happened to you because God knew that you could handle it. This happened to you because God knew that you would help others get through their marriage once you figure out and find out where you went wrong in yours. See, once we begin to heal and repair the damaged parts and the things that happen to us in life, then what happens is it turns around and begins to kiss us and bless us back. Okay? So we begin to go to counseling. We begin to care about ourselves, give ourselves permission to care about ourselves, begin to love on ourselves. See, if you don't love you, I'm sorry. We've got to fall in love with ourselves. We have to care more about ourselves, because what do they say to us when we're on the airplane? If the plane begins to go down and we begin to lose oxygen, put the mask on yourself first. You can't help anybody if you are sick and broke down and wounded. Take some time and get yourself together. Get your brain. When we begin, a good brain or a person is thinking clearly, they could just breathe in fresh air. And when that air goes and circulates through your body and through your brain, I'm telling you, it gives you a peace. And it just calms you down so that you can think clearly. When we have a good, healthy brain, we have clarity, we have wisdom, we have understanding. We're now able to have these thoughts come through our brain, and then our hearts are because I'm gonna get to the heart next. But when our hearts are healed and they're not broken, we now can hear the intuition telling us what to do. Okay? The reason why we don't know what to do is because our heart, we have three brains. We have our brain that we think with, and we have our heart, which is a little brain. It's a little brain. And I'm going to talk about the heart, because that's really the biggest. That's what gives you more messages than any other part. And then you have something down here called your intuition. So your intuition is whispers from heaven. That's God telling you what to do. Your intuition is like, that's your biggest brain. But once all three of these are aligned, oh my goodness. You talk about clarity. You talking about understanding. You talk about knowing what to do in every situation. You know, people talk about the third eye, and it was all ooh, ooky spooky. No, it's not. It's discernment. And the third eye is just your clarity and your understanding being open. It's now you really are getting messages, and you don't have to ask nobody, am I right? Is this right? You already know. I don't have to even ask you.